and welcome to another episode of What's the Plan, a community access television program whose objective is to bring community leaders to the table to discuss issues related to the maintenance and enhancement of the quality of life in Plymouth and our surrounding area. As you know, we speak about very diverse subjects, and today we're going to be back on education a little bit, but not in the traditional sense of education. We're going to be talking to our guest and well-known local attorney, Bob Betters, who is the president of the Plymouth Education Foundation. Welcome, Bob. How are you?
I'm fine, Mark. Thank you for having me.
Bob is the president of this organization and has been running it since its inception along with its board of directors. And in the spirit of full disclosure, I have recently been appointed to that board. So we're going to talk and make you familiar with what the foundation is, what its purpose is, and what it does. So Bob, can you give us a brief history of who we are and what we are and what we're trying to accomplish?
Sure. A little bit of the background might help in terms of how the Education Foundation came into existence. It actually started and grew out of the Chamber's efforts to look at the debt exclusion override. That was a ballot question back in 2007, I believe, for both Plymouth North and Plymouth South High School. And at that time, I was the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce liaison to the educational issues in town. And based on that, I dealt with Linda McAuliffe, who was chairman of the school committee at that time, and Barry Haskell, who was the superintendent of schools, kind of work on that override component. Out of those meetings, we actually established a ballot question committee to support the override. That was Educate Plymouth, and I became involved in that. Adele Manfredi became involved in that. Other members of the committee, Kevin O'Reilly assisted us, Sean Mullen, Lauren Backin, who was a local CPA, Mike Hogan, from 80 Makepeace. And after the override passed, Linda McAuliffe and Barry Haskell approached me and asked if I would consider working with them to try to establish the Education Foundation. And it's something that Barry and Linda had been thinking about for a long time. And the primary focus at that time was to establish a foundation that's independent of the town of Plymouth, that's independent of the public schools, but would be a vehicle to raise money, to utilize it for educational opportunities that would not otherwise be available through tax-based revenues. Opportunities such as robotics, which we've given a grant to, music immersion, which we've given a grant to, and situations that are like that. Obviously, there have been a lot of constraints, budgetary constraints that not only Plymouth has felt, but other towns have felt. So this was really an alternative to raising or budgeting money, rather, through the traditional process to really allow educational opportunities. And that's how it started. So we really started in 2007 thinking about it, and it wasn't until the end of 2008 that we actually established and filed the corporate documents for the Education Foundation. It then took us about 6 months or so to get certified by the IRS as a 501c3 corporation, and we didn't start fundraising until 2010. But that's kind of how it started. It really grew out of the chamber, I guess. Was the start of that, and through the efforts, quite frankly, of Linda McAuliffe, who was the school committee chairman at that stage, and Barry Haskell, who was superintendent at that stage.
What types of fundraising does the foundation do? We just had our annual gala back in February to raise this kind of capital to underwrite really the school system. And I don't mean the school system, just the public schools, because I think
Right.
we also deal a little bit with other schools, alternative schools. Do we deal with Sacred Heart specifically?
No, we're Plymouth-based,
Just
Plymouth-based,
solely,
and predominantly we look at utilizing and enhancing programs through the public schools, but we're not just limited to the public schools. Right. We can do other educational opportunities in Plymouth that are not necessarily associated with the public schools. For example, the library. We did a grant to the library for its adult literacy program. So our charter allows us to use the funds for either municipal programs or other nonprofit programs in the town of Plymouth, even though they aren't related to the schools. But predominantly, we focus on the public school system.
I just want to interject. As we go along the episode, we are going to put up on the screen the webpage address so that if you're interested in finding out more about what we're doing and keeping up on the current events of the Plymouth Education Foundation, you can go to the webpage, and that's updated periodically for your information and for public knowledge. We had in the short time I've been involved, it seems that we've had some very good fundraising over the short term. The rollout is kind of hard. Everybody's asking for money, right. For everything. We get that. The economics are what they are. But can you give us a little sense of, or give the public a little sense of where we are and what we're trying to do financially with the endowment, with general fundraising, with revolving funds available over time?
You're right. Fundraising is a primary issue, and how you deal with
it's the life requisite.
It is. I mean, how you fundraise in this economy. I mean, we started in 2010. The economy wasn't great, and right. It's getting a little better now, but we came into a tough situation to try to raise money. But I think we've been very successful in raising money. It's not near to where we want to be, but I think we have a great start. You mentioned the gala. So predominantly, our primary fundraising effort is through the annual Valentine Gala, which is in February, obviously, of each year. I think the gala in 2015 is the week before Valentine's Day. I think it's February 7th, which is a Saturday night. So that's our next gala, and that will be our 5th annual gala. So that's our primary fundraising focus. It's black tie optional, it's a live and silent auction, it's dinner, it's dancing, and I think that event has actually progressed very well since its inception. We've gotten more sponsorships, for example, that have been given to us. I think for the 2014 gala, we had approximately $15,000 in sponsorships, independent of ticket sales and auction items and that type of thing. So that's our primary event. But we need to look at developing other means of fundraising other than just relying on the gala. You can't rely on one event. I mean, so the other thing that's happened to us, we've been very fortunate that we've received a total of $80,000 in donations to the Education Foundation, specifically for the endowment. One of the primary goals of the Education Foundation was to create an endowment. That is a fund that we could not touch, we could only use the interest from. So the whole focus was on the endowment was to create a fund that would make the Education Foundation and the contribution to educational opportunities in the town of Plymouth perpetual. And I have a goal in my mind, that I wanted to look at raising $1 million as quickly as we possibly could. We've received a total of $80,000 in donations, 2012 and 2013, specifically towards the endowment. And there were 4 charitable organizations that provided those funds. $50,000 was provided from the Henry Hornblower Fund, $25,000 of which we received in 2012, and $25,000 of which we received in 2013. And then there were 3 other charitable foundations. Mary Elizabeth Pierce Charitable Foundation gave us $20,000, and then there were 2 $5,000 contributions from the Gardner Prunarit Foundation, if I'm saying that correctly, and the Roberta M. Childs Charitable Foundation. So I think that those were significant advances, towards the endowment. We've got a long way to go, but that's a great start. The thing that our board is focusing on now is to look at, in addition to the gala, having sort of an annual fund, to look at other means of getting contributions to the foundation other than through an event orientation. And that's something that my board is really focusing on now. It's not something that we've done up to this point in time, but that's where we're going now, and that's what we're trying to do.
In terms of underwriting projects, programs, can you speak a little bit to the process that one would go through to get sponsored, if you will? We've gone through a selection process recently. And could you talk about some of the projects? I know you mentioned the adult literacy program.
Right.
Some of the other projects that the foundation has underwritten.
Mm-hmm. As you indicated, we have a website. It's PlymouthEducationFoundation.org. There are applications for grants that are actually in a section of the website, and we have 2 cycles during the year to provide grants. One in the spring and one in the fall. The deadlines are noted on the website. So we've provided, I would say, between $25,000 and $30,000 in grants since we started fundraising in 2010. And there's been a kind of wide range of activities for those grants. There are 2 scholarships that we provide, or we have provided on an annual basis. One is the Abadi Scholarship. Adele Manfredi, who was one of the founding members of the foundation, her family, her parents, the Abadis, had provided a fund for scholarships that Adele turned over to us to administer. So we've been giving out the Abadi Scholarship, which is $1,000 per year, for the past 4 or 5 years. We've also given a culinary arts scholarship to a culinary arts student at Plymouth South, also over the last 4 years. But we've done a number of other grants. I mentioned the adult literacy program at the library, the music immersion program, the robotics. We've given grants to students to attend conferences, specific conferences geared towards things that they've done either through science or other type projects. A grant for Model UN. We did a grant for iPad technology recently for the math department at Plymouth South. And that's just kind of an overview. We've also given grants to the Chamber for its College Jumpstart program, which I think is a great program. That's a program that the Chamber established, and they've solicited funds from a number of sources. We've provided them with 2 grants and the total of about $6,000 for their Jumpstart. I mean, what they do is they provide grants to graduating students that have graduated that don't want to go into traditional college programs. So they work with Massasoit Community College to do EMT programs or veterinary assistant programs, that type of thing, to provide alternatives to kind of traditional college courses, which I think is a great idea and a great opportunity. So we've done that as well. But that's an overview of the types of things that we've done.
Just for the folks, when Bob refers to the Chamber, he's referring to the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce.
True.
There are a lot of chambers, there are a lot of acronyms flying around, a lot of names. But, and our chamber is known as the Chamber to us casually, but it is the Plymouth Area Chamber of Commerce. What is the relationship with the schools? I mean, in terms of right now, I mean, the inception was with Linda McAuliffe and Barry Haskell. We have a new superintendent, Gary Maestas, new school committee, new school committee chair. How and what is the relationship? That's a rhetorical question, but I'm asking it anyway.
Right.
The relationship with the public schools today.
Well, first and foremost, we're independent and autonomous. So we're not affiliated with the schools. We wanted to maintain our autonomy. With that said, we want to make sure that programs that we're providing grants for are consistent with administration guidelines, are consistent with what they're attempting to do, and that it's not contradictory in terms of other programs or other budgetary situations that exist. So we keep in contact with Gary Maestas, the current superintendent of schools, and one of the requirements on our applications is that you have to have some sort of administrative approval, either on the principal level or through department head level, on any grant applications that come in that are germane to the school system. So, you know, we want to make sure that what we're doing is not inconsistent with their goals, inconsistent with their activities, but, you know, at the same point in time, we want to be separate and distinct and autonomous and, you know, not governed by any of their dictates and kind of set our own goals and set our own design in terms of how we think funds should be spent.
Mm-hmm. Now, when an individual or a group applies for a grant, what are the restrictions imposed on them in terms of how or what the money is for? And I ask that question mostly because I don't think they're very restricted. I mean, based on the outcome of whatever they're proposing to do or
Right.
applying to do,
Right.
the foundation has worked to fund all or portions of their endeavor based on what they've asked for in terms
Right.
of money.
Right.
And sometimes we don't give everything that they ask for, but we give some to
Right.
partially underwrite. So
Right.
what kind of restrictions are there on the grant applicants?
Well, that's a great question. I mean, I think the first point is we can't fund every application that comes in. We're at the inception of the
We'd like to,
foundation.
but
I'd
we
love
can't.
to. I hate to say no.
Yeah,
That's one
right.
of the things I have a difficult time saying no. But we have to be prudent in terms of how we spend our funds and prudent in terms of the grants that we give.
And I think some of the discussions we've had on grants indicates that our initial knee-jerk reaction is not to say no,
Right.
but really have to work through
Right.
and find out what really is most appropriate,
Right.
given that there is limits on funding.
All right, and what we like to see is, to use a phrase, you know, bang for the buck type of situation. We like to see programs that benefit as large a student group or other group as possible. You know, so that we like kind of more of a broad-reaching approach than a limited approach. You know, so I think that's one aspect of it. The second aspect of it, and the one thing that I like to see, and I think the board generally likes to see, is that we're not the sole source of funds. That whoever is applying for the grant is also looking at other means of raising money to contribute to the program that they're looking for. So if they say, look, you know, here's what we're doing in terms of fundraising from other sources, you know, we're more inclined to say, great, you know, we'll help, we'll contribute, we'll give you a portion of it. But each grant has to be looked at independently, you know, and it's what does the application say, how thorough is it, you know, how many students, et cetera, is it going to reach and is it going to assist? And, you know, are they looking at other sources that you know, potentially we don't have to pay for the entire program? So those are some of the things that we look at. But you're right, it's hard to say no.
Oh, it really is. I mean, because when you look at it from the grant application or the grant applier's point of view, better way to put it, you assume that there is an earnest
Right.
interest
Right.
in expanding that expertise
Right.
in that way, and
Right.
it's just it's the issue that comes before us is how relevant is it to really the expansion of education
Right.
in the Plymouth system.
And you know, we provide a grant for a specific purpose, but you know, it's not restricted in that sense. I mean, although you know, we'll make a grant for iPad technology. I mean, the funds have to be used for that, but and we'd like to get reports back. We'd like to hear back from recipients of the grant. This is how we've used the funds. This is what we've done, you know, et cetera. So we like to get reports back, and that's actually part of our process.
Right.
Is we like to find out how the funds were used, how successful the event was, you know, that type of thing. But we try to be flexible. We try not to be too restrictive. We try to act quickly in terms of grants that are requested.
Now, just as an example, we had a student who went to a conference, and I
Right.
believe we covered travel expenses and hotel?
No, I think we contributed a portion of it, and I don't remember quite what it was earmarked for, but
I seem to remember it had to do with getting
Right.
that person from Plymouth to
Right.
the location,
Right.
and how the other portion was paid for. I
Right.
think our funds were used for travel,
Right.
which is kind of an indication of the lack of restriction. I
Right.
mean, as long as the outcome was the outcome.
Right.
We,
Right.
the board, felt it was a reasonable outcome.
Right.
Therefore, the sum of money that was applied for, we gave, and if it was the travel, that's what okay, we get that. That's fine.
There's some level of trust,
Yeah, absolutely,
involved,
absolutely.
and so, we basically rely on the integrity of the folks that they're going to use the funds as they've applied for.
Now, the board recently expanded.
It did.
Can you speak to why that process occurred?
Well, when we first started, the 5 founding members that were on the board were myself, Adele Manfredi, Barry Haskell, Lauren Backen, and I think I'm missing one. Myself, Adele, Barry, Lauren, and Linda McAuliffe. Yeah. Sorry, Linda. So those were the initial 5 members. We did all the organization and started. But our thought was to get to a board that would be approximately 15 board members, in order to have a broad base of experience on the board, et cetera. We're not quite at that number yet, but we were down to like 7 board members, and we felt that it was important to enhance our board base. So, we looked at the end of last year, inviting people that we thought might be good fit with the board to come meet with us, do a program, et cetera, which resulted in your coming on the board. So, if my memory serves me now, our board consists of Lauren Backen is still on the board, Barry Haskell, myself, Nicole Manfredi, Anthony Shenna, Kathy Wallace, Sean Costa, and then the new board members, you obviously being one, would be Barry Young, Paul Vickery, and Sue Wentworth. I don't think I've missed anyone.
That sounds like...
Hopefully not. Oh, Nancy Ceccarelli. I'm sorry, Nancy. So that's our current board, which I think is a great board, and I think it's a highly motivated board, kind of a diverse cross-section of folks in the Plymouth area, but all devoted to educational aims and opportunities. So,
well, we're certainly going to find out a week from tomorrow.
Exactly.
It's an annual meeting.
Exactly.
Our retreat
exactly.
on Saturday the 17th. So that will be an interesting discussion.
It'll be a great discussion.
I think the outcomes will be great, but
Yeah.
it'll be interesting because we have more opinions and more ideas, out there. Well, as we're winding down, where do you think, and I ask this because you've been there since the beginning, where do you think this foundation needs to go to be really successful within the community?
Well, I think that fundraising has to be enhanced. If we're to survive and we're to have an endowment, we have to enhance our fundraising activities. That, I think, is number one in terms of what the board has to do. Number two, I think we need to get the word out there better about the foundation from a grant perspective. In terms of that we do have funds available for certain things. We're looking for quality programs. We're looking for good opportunities for people in the town of Plymouth. So I think we need to get the word out there that we do have funds available, and that we're soliciting grant applications for viable programs. But those to me are the two primary areas that we need to focus on. But I mean, our goal is to be perpetual. Our goal is to make a difference and to really assist. I mean, from my perspective, I think public education is one of the great things, of this country. You look at public libraries, public education. I think it's what one of the things that kind of binds us together.
It provides the leveling.
Right.
We talk about constitutional rights,
right.
And and our rights are not really the Constitution says you're going to make $100,000 a year.
Right.
The rights that were granted through the Constitution are opportunity.
Right.
And public education does provide opportunity because anybody can walk into a public education facility, whether it's a school or a library.
Right.
They are welcome to participate.
Right.
Their success is measured by the ability of the facility to provide the kind of resource and education to develop success.
Right.
But also, it's the motivation of the individual who goes in, has this opportunity.
Absolutely true.
It's not money all the time. It's not the building. It's not the facility. It's not the people. They're part of it, but that doesn't drive the success of an individual.
Right.
We all went to school. We all worked hard. Maybe we slouched off at times. But at the end, you finally realize, hey, you got to put pedal to the metal. You have to work to succeed, and these facilities provide those opportunities to succeed. And that's really one of the great, to me, is the greatest thing about public education. I should also say that we're talking about fundraising. And as board members, we are all financially vested in this.
Right.
This is,
we
have contributed not only sweat equity, but we have contributed financially to the fundraising.
No question.
It's not a question of we're looking around with a handout.
Right.
We're playing just as hard as we're asking you to play with us. So it's kind of an interesting thing. I'm getting signal from the control room, so we're kind of winding down. This has been great. I mean, my purpose here was to make just another vehicle to get us out in the public eye, so the public is aware of us. We will be out and about periodically with fundraising and doing the things we're doing. I want to thank you for being my guest today.
Thank you, Mark.
And thank you for the work in starting this, along with Barry and Linda McAuliffe way back when, and Adele Manfredi. And we do function in her memory.
We do.
Because she was a tremendous contributor to the town of Plymouth as a whole.
Yes.
And specifically to schools, as being a school committee member, chair of the school committee for many years. And she was a great lady. I tremendous honor knowing her. So this is a good thing to speak in her memory and in the spirit of what she did for the town.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks again to Bob for being here, and I want to thank you for tuning in again. This is What's the Plan, and we will see you next time when I think we will be talking about environment and marine affairs. So thank you, and take care.